Good evening, everybody. My name is Kartik, one of the co-founders of ETHGlobal, and welcome to ETHGlobal Prague. This is not a conference. You are here at an ETHGlobal event, and our mission is to onboard thousands of developers into the Web3 ecosystem. What makes these events unique is a few things that we want to tell you about today. This weekend is a hackathon. We're doing this thing after running our Pragma conference yesterday. And the cool part about all these things is that we want to focus on the builders. Yesterday was about everybody else in this space. Today is just people who want to build some cool shit. These events and this weekend is for you to learn, get help, mentor others, and grow as individuals to get more advanced in how this ecosystem is evolving. And the most important piece that we want you to take away this weekend is that showing is way more important than telling. We started this for fun over 7 years ago, and that turned out to be more than just a one-time thing. We've been going across all different parts of the world, from many countries to many continents, constantly getting more and more people to be excited about Web3, from Tokyo to Lisbon to Waterloo to Paris, New York, India, London, Sydney, Brussels, Singapore, San Francisco, Bangkok for DEF CON. And we started this year off with our first in-person event in Taipei. And it's incredible to see the impact these events have made. We've done events now in 6 different continents, done over 150 of these, and successfully onboarded over 150,000 people. So I want to thank all of you for being part of our community. And this gets me even more excited to be here in Prague. This is our second time doing an in-person event in 2025, our first time in Prague. I want to thank everybody who's been so incredibly helpful for making this happen, especially the ETH Prague team. This would definitely not have happened without their support. And I want to see who actually is coming back as a past ETHGlobal hacker. Cheer if you are returning. Nice. This is one of our more unique events where we're getting more new people to be part of it. There's over 825 attendees. 600 of them are hackers from 55 different countries, and a third of you are brand new to building in Web3, which means they're existing developers and builders trying Web3 from Web2 for the first time, and I can't wait to see all the cool things that you built. And it's going to be even more fun because we're letting all of you use AI to help finish your project. So I expect even more ambitious things being tackled on for the next 36 hours. People are here from all different parts of the world, 5 continents represented. This is absolutely amazing. This blows me away every time that people came in and made this the way they want to spend their weekend. And of course, so many different parts of Europe are just represented in this map. So I want to meet all of you who are here from so many different places, especially for those of you who are joining us for the very first time. A warm welcome, and we can't wait to see what you think. Not only just the hackers, there's 110 partner representatives from all amazing protocols in this space that you get to use and you have used in the past. They are here to help you simplify a lot of your weekend. And we have 20 dedicated technical mentors who are going to be there to help you debug any of your problems, whether it's on Solidity or front end or back end or anything in between. You can actually get real-time help at any given time of this weekend. There's 16 workshops helping you get started with different protocols and Web3 in general. And because this is not a conference, there will be just one talk this entire weekend. The best part of it is that you also get rewarded for building cool things. So there's going to be $150,000 in USD prizes being given away for being able to use different technologies, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that very soon. All these prizes are thanks to our 14 partners who are here. You get to see all of them at different booths. So I want you to all ready up and help me thank all of our 14 partners that have made this possible. So please give a massive round of applause to 1inch, Block Scout, Flare, Flow, Hedera, Layer Zero, Pith, Rootstock, VLayer, World, Yellow, Baraboro, Hard Hat, and Protocol Labs. You can find people from all of these companies here and learn about how they work, how they can help simplify a lot of what you want to build, and also any opportunities that you see to help them improve their product or help you get more help in improving your career. Let's talk about the weekend, because I want to make sure that we spend the next 5 to 10 minutes just giving you all the key things that you need to know. I want to talk about all these things on how you can get help, how everything is structured, how judging works, how project submission works. So let's dive in. Hacking officially begins now, which means from now until 36 hours from now, 36 hours and 45 minutes from now, you have all the time you can build on your projects. You can work on a project with up to 5 members on a team. It's also okay to work as an individual. You don't have to have a team, but we prefer that you do because it helps simplify how you spend your time over the next 2.5 days. 36 hours, and submissions are due next month. That's right. 9 a.m. June 1st is when you have to be ready for your submissions. And here is what you need to know about this whole process. Thank you for that one person who found this funny. Everything you are doing here must be done from scratch, which means you cannot add a feature to something you've been building before. We want to make sure everything is fair. You cannot add and build on pre-existing work. And anybody who's submitting a project will only win a prize if everybody who's part of the GitHub repo and on their team page is RSVP'd properly, which means if you added one of your team members and on your dashboard it doesn't show that they were confirmed, you have a problem. You may want to make sure that they RSVP before midnight tonight, because at midnight they will all be removed from your team, and if you win a prize, only people who were listed at the time of submission as a team member will be receiving their portion, and we will not make exceptions. On top of that, we want to make sure this event is helpful for all of you as builders, no matter if you're junior or first time or you've been in this space for 10 years. We want to make sure that you get a lot of support and information. So there's a lot of workshops that have happened. You can see all of them on YouTube, and it's ready for you to watch on demand. And it focuses on everything from beginners to intermediate to experts. You get to learn about some complex things, as well as how to get started with some basic SDKs. All this information, in addition to a lot more documentation on best practices for smart contracts, deploying things, how to keep things more secure, are available on an info center where we have a getting started help book. And everything was made available for you to look at from now, but also for any of the events we've done in the past. So if you are curious about how to use any protocol, chances are you can find that YouTube video by just putting in the name of that protocol and ETHGlobal. I'm not going to cover everything here, so if there's anything else you want to know, just ask us, find anybody on the ETHGlobal team, or there's multiple other ways to reach us, and we'll be able to clarify those things for you, especially on what counts as a pre-existing project. For example, it's totally okay to fork an existing open source project and add things to it. And if you are not sure if that counts, come talk to me or somebody else on our team, and I'll happily clarify. Let's talk about security. All of you should have these wristbands. We want to make sure that you have them with you at all times, because this is the only thing that will let you come inside the building. If you don't have your wristband, we will deny you entry, especially at night. And this is the only thing the security guards have been told to look for. So if you forgot your stuff and you forgot your wristband, you definitely have a problem, because you will not be allowed. We also don't want you to leave your belongings unattended. If you're planning on going home, take all your stuff with you. We are not going to be able to ensure that everybody's stuff will remain in the same place you put it, so please make sure you are guarding your own items. Also, don't make a mess. There's a lot of garbage cans here. If you're going to consume anything from drinks to food to snacks, please put them away and make sure that your work environment is clean and we don't do any accidental spills or damage any property. Let's talk about internet. Please do not use hotspots. The internet should be good. We're testing it constantly. We've done testers in every corner. We found a bunch of things that were not working and have been fixed now. Everything should be in a really good shape for all of you to have pretty good speeds with up to 2 devices at a minimum easily. We also have Ethernet cables if you need to plug in directly, and you can get a Ethernet dongle if you don't have one by going back to the swag table. Schedule and everything else that you need to know is part of the website. That is the source of truth. Anytime we update something, we update the website first, and then we tell all of you about it. So if you are unsure about something, just go on ethglobal.com/Prague, and you'll be ready to follow what's going on. In terms of communicating with all 800 of you, we're going to use Discord as our main source of platform. That's where we're going to do all the announcements. That's where we're going to ping everybody else, and you get to ping us. That's the one we monitor the most. And this is the place where all of our partners are ready with all of their team members who are here and also who are remote to just watch the channels about their own protocols to help answer any of your questions. And the same thing goes for a mentor. If you can find somebody you need help from, just ask in the mentorship channel or ask anybody on the global team, and we'll monitor that and we'll respond to you no matter when you ask those questions. And this simplifies a lot of things because you can put the question there and still try to find the relative person in the space. But we heavily encourage you to use Discord to ask questions. Of course, you are in person. Talk to each other. This is one of those opportunities where you get to meet people from so many different parts of the world, 55 different countries, people from all over, their experiences in being in this space, from founders to designers to developers. You get to learn from so many cool people, and we want you to take advantage of that. And also, if you're stuck on something that's not working for you as code, you can probably shout for help, and there's a good chance that somebody would know how to debug that contract or that front-end library or understand what you need to do to get moving for your project. Quick things on the venue. This is a venue that is a combination of two buildings. All of you are here. This is where the main hacking area is, but then we're also connected to a building across the hall. That's where food and additional hacking tables is, and also where the judging is going to be. I'm not going to go through this map, but just remember that if you haven't gone past the other side, if you exit from this hall, there's a whole separate building connected through a hallway. And the venue will be open at all times, so you can come in anytime. So it's 24/7. And just to make it clear, because we keep getting asked this a lot, there'll be a lot of food. Dinner and a midnight snack today, brunch and dinner and a midnight snack tomorrow, and breakfast and lunch tomorrow, and then we're going to do an after party here in this building after the whole hackathon ends. All this is also on the website. You can read up all of this. And for today, we're going to do some traditional Czech food as a midnight snack, so promptly at midnight is when you'll see it. And we're going to continue the same theme tomorrow. Of course, there's a lot of cool things that you can take away, and we want to make sure you have great memories. So there's also a photo booth that's digital, and you can go at the up where you came in from the stairs and take a photo and get that emailed to you. And we hope that you get to take a photo with your whole team. And we actually recommend you do one right now and then on Sunday, so you can see your faces depending on how Sunday goes. We're also going to be making sure that you get to stay active. There's going to be yoga sessions here in workshop room C1. There's going to be 3 sessions tomorrow from 12, 1, and 2. So if you're interested in this, check it out. And there's also a really cool NFT gallery that we're piloting where a lot of our attendees drew and made submissions to just really, really cool things about our ecosystem. And you get to see all these galleries that are going to be rotating, and you get to mint these as NFTs using POAPs. So we encourage you to check out all the monitors in the hallways. We'll show some of these artworks. And we hope that you enjoy some of the amazing work that our community has done. And if you haven't already picked up your swag bag, we got a pretty badass swag bag for you, which includes an actual bag and a bunch of swag in it. Shirt, sticker sheet, some amazing Czech wafers, a toothbrush, and some fidget things that I'm sure you'll use to annoy everybody else around you. I want to quickly talk about being on chain because we want to make sure all of you are being given the opportunity to make things on chain a lot more smoother for us and all of you. There's 2 things that are important here, the NFC bands and HackerPack. All the wristbands for everybody here are special chips that are actual Ethereum wallets, and they can sign Ethereum transactions. These are P256 curve compatible, which means every wallet is a private key that signs it. And thanks to ARCs, you also have an SDK, so if you scan anybody's wristband, you'll get to expose a lot of cool things from it. Every wristband is personalized to the person wearing it, which means it has context for who you are and where you've been within the global ecosystem. But if you scan someone else's wristband, you'll get the option to connect with them, and they get to share any contact information that they want with you. So you get to track basically who you've met, and they get to specify, hey, here's my Discord, here's my Telegram, or here's my email. They can toggle what they would like to share with each of you, and this becomes part of your weekend here because these are going to be on-chain transactions at stations, anonymized, don't worry. And we want to make sure that we can show you that Web3 is at a point where it can be applied day to day. The other cool thing is you can actually go to arcs.org and go to their docs page, and you have a simple JavaScript SDK that you can use, and you can actually code things with these wristbands, and you can have somebody sign it, and you can build an app that lets you use each person's private key. And it's always as awesome to have people try this out, and you can just take them away at home and use this in general ever because this is the proper Ethereum wallet. The other thing is HackerPack. Everybody who's a hacker here ended up minting these things, and we want to make sure these things help you be more successful as a developer. A HackerPack is a special NFT contract that has a bunch of other features that let us blend in on-chain and off-chain perks. Some of these perks that are relevant here is you all get access to a testnet, which has 19 different chains. You can request a lot of testnet funds and never have to worry about how do I get the relative funds. Everybody here will also be able to get an ENS, Lens, and a Farcaster account. We'll cover all the costs thanks to the support from all three of these protocols. There's a lot more perks and credits that you get to use as developers. I want to make sure that you are ready to actually take your projects from just a hackathon to everything that's next. So everything here is on ethglobal.com/packs and ethglobal.com/faucet. I want to quickly talk about the prizes and how you can be ready for submission. So there's going to be two things that are important here. There's going to be a partner prize and a finalist prize. When you pick wanting to go through just a partner prize process, you will have the option to select up to 3 partners. That is the max limit. You cannot apply for more than 3 partners. And any partner you select, you'll qualify for all prizes under that partner. So if a protocol has 3 prizes, you just have to select the protocol and they'll consider you for all 3. You don't have to worry about, oh, I didn't want this category and I didn't want the other. Once you are submitting your project, you get to select this, and as long as you select this, the partner will get a notification saying they have to review you. The other part is the finalist track. If you want to be part of the finalist track, you will be considered to be one of the top 10 projects for ETHGlobal Prague. These are the best projects we see from this event. They go through a special judging process, and the prizes that they are eligible for, in addition to any partner prizes, is that they will be eligible for the finalist pack, and they'll also come on stage and demo their project to everybody else on Sunday. In order to be a finalist, you have to follow a few rules. One is that your project must start from scratch, which is the same for everybody else, but you have to be using version control on Git and GitHub properly. You cannot just commit one 100,000 line commit, and that's all it says. You need to be showing us a proper history of how it started, how you've improved it, how your team members are contributing. Everything must be auditable because we want to see the history of how you started to where you ended. It must be open source. It must be deployed and live. So local hosts will not qualify. Put it on Vercel, put it on any other place. Try to do an experience that somebody else can go on their phones and try. You don't have to deploy your contracts on mainnet, but you cannot do this with the expectation that somebody will have access to your computer. They need to be able to see that on their own computer. And if you end up being a finalist, you will be qualifying for the ETHGlobal Prague finalist pack. This is an additional NFT pack as part of our PAX contract that give you access to a bunch more things. It means you'll get ETHGlobal Plus for the next 12 months, 1,000 USDC to every member on your team. We'll be giving you a $500 flight credit to come to the next ETHGlobal hackathon, and an on-chain proof of you being one of the top hackers of the Ethereum ecosystem. And we do a lot of private events with different founders in this space to help them answer any of your questions and give you guidance on how you can take your project to the next level. And a lot of credits to be able to deploy and not have to worry about infrastructure. So there's over $15,000 in credits, and every single person on that team will get these. So those are the 2 things you can do for the prizes, but this is how you want to integrate all those things. At 9 o'clock, prize submissions will be due, and that's when judging starts. There, you will have the option to pick the partner track or just the finalist judging track. Now, both of these things happen in parallel, and they go from 9:30 to 12:30. If you select the partner judging, it means that you are going to only qualify for the partner prizes, but you don't have any participation in being one of the top 10 teams. If you do the top 10 finalist prize, you will be eligible for both, but then you have to do one extra presentation to a separate set of judges who will determine if you're one of the more interesting projects from this entire weekend. All you have to do to qualify for a partner prize is make sure that you select that partner in your submission form, and the second you do that, they'll get notified, and you can come and present your demo to their booth. Every partner will have a booth, and they'll be able to look at your submission. They will be able to ask you questions, and sometimes they'll just look at the submission itself and only message you if they have any questions. So make sure that you are giving as much detail as possible, because it's not a requirement for you to go to every partner and demo your project. The order doesn't matter. If you have 3 partners you're presenting to and you want to be a finalist, that means you have 4 possible demos. You can go to any of them in any order. It's going to be first come, first serve. But if you want to do a finalist judging, you will have 7 minutes for your demo. 4 of this is for a demo and 3 minutes for Q&A. And we recommend that you have a video submission on your project so that if something goes wrong or if a judge needs to look at your submission again, they can play a video recording of your demo and try to understand what happened and then also ask you any questions. We really recommend that you don't do this thing last minute because it will take you at least 40 minutes to work on your submission because you have to put in a lot of details, you have to put in screenshots, you have to walk us through the specific lines of code. So try to spend as much time as possible getting ready for your submission, and you get to see what all the questions are tomorrow morning. So you don't have to worry about doing this thing last minute. You will have over 24 hours of heads up on what information you need. All this happens on your dashboard. You will be able to see everything very easily. We've done this thing a lot of times, and there's a few things that we recommend that you do to stand out as a submission. We really recommend you record a video. It doesn't matter if it's finalist track or not. Just having the ability for somebody to pause, look, and absorb what you're doing just gives you and everybody else a good odds of communicating what was written or what was built. We recommend that you spend more time on the demo and less on the slides, so do not spend more than 30 to 40 seconds on introductions. Just get right to the demo and why you built it and how it works. We really want you to use Git and GitHub properly. We should be able to see how something is being used and imported and where you fixed a bug. All those things, just any best coding practice, we want you to follow that. And do not be lazy about putting in descriptions for your projects. You should really talk about how it works, why you chose to build it, how something is happening behind the scenes, especially if you're doing something complicated. Communicate the steps of this is how we got to here and this is what happens in this step. All this helps everybody understand, our partners, our judges, me, really figure out what's going on for a given project. So ultimately, our advice is make the submission good because whatever you see on your showcase project page is what helps you be more successful for your submission. And anything else that we didn't talk about, well, we want to say make sure we have opportunities here. So there's a lot of technical mentors. They're all wearing vests. There's a mentor station as well at the end of this hall. And you can also ping anybody in the mentorship channel. So find any of these people who are not construction workers and ask them how to fix your code. They'll be here this entire time, whether it's 4 p.m. or 4 a.m. There's also going to be a feedback session. So if you're looking to get feedback on what you built so far, you can go there tomorrow at the station at the end of this hall and get live feedback from some of our mentors and partners. Anything else that I missed, you can ask us any questions, ping us on Discord. There's also an ETHGlobal help desk. You can find a person on our team. You can message us on Discord, email, Twitter, anywhere. Find us. We'll be happy to help all of you. And the one thing I want to also talk about is our code of conduct. This is an in-person event. There's a few things we want you to be aware of. Everything here is written out as part of the event rules in ethglobal.com/rules. It covers how to behave here, how to be successful here, and what will not be tolerated. The short of it is, please be respectful, and harassment in any form to anybody will not be tolerated. We will take prompt action, and if you see something that shouldn't be the way it is, please come and find us and report it, and we'll be able to take action immediately. And the most important part of this is that anything you build here today will be solely owned by you and your team equally, which means neither ETHGlobal, none of our partners have access to the IP rights of your work. You can do whatever you like with your project after this event, and you get to own everything that comes out of this. That was all the logistics we want you to know. We want to get into a couple of things that will get you excited, and we want to bring on a couple partners to tell you about who they are, what they're excited to do. And I want to start off by bringing on Dao Sasha to tell you all about OneEdge. So please give her a big round of applause.
Hello, everyone, guys. How are you doing? Hope you enjoy the beginning of this beautiful hack, GM or GN, whatever you prefer. I want to see the hands of the hackers who are here the first time. I've met them, a couple of them previously. Whoa! Hello, guys, and I'm very glad that we have such a big new beginners community. For those who are here for the first time, OneEdge was built at the Ethereum Global Hackathon in 2019 in New York. Those was one of our co-founders who are building, and that means that, so we've built this hackathon, and now here we are. We have almost 655 billion of total volume. There is a beautiful core contributors, 160 who are distributed all over the globe. And you see all these numbers. And this is basically thanks to Ethereum Global Community. We are now here. And we built the hackathon, and now the time is yours. And this is what we prepared for you. So first is basically the bigger prize. We released recently the cross-chain solution, and the ability for you is to basically get these prizes to build Fusion Plus across those different chains. The second prize is basically to play with limit order protocol and maybe build build some custom hooks on limit order protocol. The last one is basically we recently implemented the developer portal where you have almost 12 plus different APIs, and you can brainstorm on the idea and where basically you can implement our API, swap API, pricing API, NFT API, any APIs. This is basically more information about what we are basically prepared for you. There is one each booth on the left side. There is a Tanner, Alex, myself, Matt, who are welcome you and are ready to answer all your questions. And we have 10 seconds, but I just want to thank you and I wish you good luck, and let's just keep building together. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Amazing. Next up, I want to bring on Curl to tell you all about Block Scout. Please give him a big round of applause.
Hello, hackers. Hope you're enjoying this evening so far in the hackathon. So the Block Scout ecosystem has been growing crazy and huge for the past couple of years. We are now proudly covering more than 2,000 networks across the ecosystem, different layers, networks, rollups, and across any dimension you can think of. Just 200 of those, or around something like that, is hosted by our team as part of Explorer as a service offering we have, or as part of one-click deployment tool called AutoScout we launched this year. And the rest of these 2,000 instances is being hosted out there since the product is open source by the clients themselves, by the networks, by the rollup as a service providers, which host more than 1,000 instances themselves. And Block Scout is a partner is the primary block explorer for all of them. So yeah, the numbers are growing huge, super incredible. Now a few words about the hackathon bounty we have. So we have a lot to talk about, so I'll try to be quick. So the first bounty we have is just for the best use of Block Scout in any way possible through our APIs. So you can use the APIs directly, you can use the API through the AI agent of your choice. Any stuff like even simple integrations like doing an llm.txt file or doing a ChatGPT plugin for the Block Scout or integrating with any MCP server counts towards this bounty as well. Then we have the bounty for the Block Scout UI SDK integration for enriching the transaction history and notification pop-ups in your front end. Then we have the most requested bounty so far was about Block Scout Merits, which is our loyalty program at Block Scout. And basically, if you can find a cool way to showcase the merit balances of users within your builds, or find a way to distribute merits to your users as part of your workflow, be happy to apply to this bounty as well. And then for the rest of you, we have a pool prize, which will be shared among all qualifying projects who integrate Block Scout in any way possible, or just put a link to Block Scout, verify contracts, any usage counts. I'm running out of time. Thank you. Good luck. Become the king of this hackathon and take the crown, literally.
Amazing. Thank you. And next up, we want to jump right into the one talk that we have scheduled for this weekend. And for this one, I'd like to bring on Vitalik to talk about a lot of cool things on privacy, AI, DAOs, and a bunch of other things. Welcome to day 2.
And welcome to day, whatever your day. So, how many of these have you done this year?
4?
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty
10
good.
more to go, or something like that.
Amazing. 14 a year. Do you think we'll ever see Hydrogen 40?
Actually, yes. But will you see me in all of them? No. But we are trying to do that. And that's one of the things that we're actually super excited about as an experiment. And if you go to the ETHGlobal website, you'll see that we're ramping up doing more local engagements in different parts of the world. And I'd like to see a world where we can do something every day in some part of the world
There actually is a practical way for you to attend all of them.
virtually.
Exactly. So not just like virtually the boring way, but
I need to buy a Tesla bot.
yeah, like okay, so like remember how Bitcoin conferences back in like 2013 and 14, and remember when like people like Charlie Schramm, they'd have like legal trouble, so they would not be able to come in person, right?
Just get one of
And
those iPad.
exactly, you'd have
videos.
like a bot, right? It's and then yeah, it's like an iPad on a stick, and they can actually like move the iPad around and like interact with everyone like a person.
Yeah, I just have to figure out my sleep schedule in that case. But I'm just betting on AI video to get better, so I can just type out what I want to say and have it be scheduled.
From Kartik to K-Arctic. Hopefully that'll be cathartic.
It's good.
Okay.
Let's start with talking about privacy. It's become definitely hot recently for some good things and for some not so good things that we've seen in the media. And my kind of first question to you is, are we in a good place right now to experiment more with privacy, or do we gotta wait for more tech and more regulations to simplify, and then it'll be a better time to try things out?
I actually think now is the best time to really start getting back into like
Why?
really, sure. So I guess maybe just like first off, just for the big picture, like starting off with a bit of history, right? So who here in the audience has heard of Chaumian and eCash? Okay.
Okay.
So this is the, there was like an entire lineage of attempts to create Bitcoin before Bitcoin. And one of the interesting things of the very first one from David Chaum in 1982 is that it was not even decentralized. It actually was fully centralized. It was a server, but it was private. And even the server could not actually tell like who was sending how many coins to whom, right? And then somehow, we've evolved in this direction where we basically started doing the decentralization thing, and then we kind of gave up on the privacy because there wasn't technology to do decentralization and privacy. But then now we have ZKs and ARCs, and so now it looks like we actually can get decentralization and privacy at the same time, right? And it's like interesting to look back at the much earlier versions.
This was the 80s we're talking about.
Exactly, the 80s, the 90s. Like the goal was not decentralization. The goal was what was actually privacy, right? And I think it was it was interesting to just remember and like think about that, and like just basically keep in mind that privacy was really this very central part of the goal the whole time. And I would say for very good reason, right? So
You know what? I find that interesting because at that time, home computers were not a thing. So that was government surveillance fears without tech actually being a big part of most people's lives.
Well, you know what they say, right? The mediocre predictor of the future predicts the car. The great predictor predicts the traffic jam. So these guys were like predicting 3 steps ahead of the traffic jam before we were even born.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, I think like the intuitive reason to worry about privacy, I think like makes a lot of sense, right? Which is like if you take as a starting point that we value decentralization, and you value decentralization because you're worried about centralized actors, like doing something wrong or like something negative that you don't expect. And then if you ask like just people in general, like what specific things actually worry them the most in terms of abuse from centralized actors, like normally it's not like them going in and editing numbers in your spreadsheet, right? There are times when it's like rugging you by changing the rules on you, but a lot of the time it is all about like protecting your private data, right? And so, like, I think like if we want like really want to think about like actually meeting the needs that people have, and especially the needs that the needs that have to do with like avoiding risks of centralized actors that people have, then privacy ends up being right at the center of it, right?
Yes,
So,
but it's also one of those things where what we see commonly here is that you only worry about being deplatformed or being at risk of this once you've been affected, but it's harder to make that case day to day to any regular person. So while the goal is great, it becomes harder to get people to care.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think for me personally, it's actually it definitely became like 5 times easier to care once like the coin media got really, really good at like staking every single time I send someone some amount of ETH and turning into an article. It's like, like I send like 75 ETH to some charity and then they sell it because they obviously have expenses, and like Vitalik Buterin is selling ETH. So that's well, at some point, like the extremes of not having privacy, become obvious, right? But like as I've said in
Do you believe that
hmm,
it has to be at the extremes, or can there, or should there be a
yeah,
middle ground here? Like, is it,
yeah.
are we
So.
just fully private only, or maybe
mm,
some?
So in terms of like who should care about privacy, I do think it's a fact that the types of people who have like more very direct and concrete reason to worry about privacy are the types of people that like deviate from the norm in pretty much any direction. And if you add up all of those directions, then that's like a big portion of the population, right? And if that's not you today, that could be you at any point in the future, right? And so it's yeah, in terms of like how we actually get there, and like how like what we should be willing to sacrifice, how much effort we should be willing to put in. Like it's definitely not an easy battle, right? So I mean, one example is like, so if we think about Signal, right? So h- what percent of your like instant messaging would you say is on Signal right now?
About 20,
Okay, how much was it like 3 years ago?
5.
I think for me this year it was about 50, and I think 3 years ago it was also like 5. And actually, for ironically, I think like Pavel, well, actually not ironically at all, Pavel Durov being arrested was probably like the like really big trigger for a lot of people, right? It's this reminder that
So now you're worried about the side effect of someone else's
exactly.
decisions.
The the fact that the platform is centralized is not just this like totally abstract thing in the cloud. It's like, oh wait, there's a database. Somebody has the password to the database. And sometimes, like the person with the password to the database ends up just like being not who you expect. Like I think there was this incident at the end of last year when there were the mandatory wiretap data that the I think FBI collects in the U.S. like got hacked by China. And so it's like, well, you thought it was one country's law enforcement. Well, guess what? Now there's a totally different other country now, right? So but it's it is one of those things where like the appeal is often unintuitive, but there are these moments when it becomes intuitive. And like where Signal I think did a good job is like it's definitely far from perfect UX wise, right? If it was perfect, like both our numbers would be 100. But like it has come quite close. I think probably closer than most crypto projects to actually crossing the chasm.
Absolutely. Well, so I mean, I want to bring this back to understanding how do you practically do this for money?
Yes. So the kind of flagship technology that I think a lot of us have been talking about, I mean, using hacking with for the past, I mean, really decade is ZK snarks. And like, who here has used a ZK snark protocol more than 2 years ago? More than 5 years ago? More than 8 years ago? More than 10? Hmm. So a couple of early Zcash users here, right? Yeah. So it's now one thing. Do you remember what your experience using Zcash was like back in 2016?
I had to wait 3 hours for the note to sync,
Mm.
and then I was able to send a transaction, and then it took a few minutes. It was like 8 to 10 minutes, 16 minutes or so to generate that proof, and it went like just a normal Bitcoin node, and I only sent it to another account I created to myself because I didn't have anybody else to send it to, and I was like, oh, this is cool, but then I didn't use it after.
Oh wow, wait, 16 minutes? That's like about as long as it takes for my GPU laptop to generate a video.
I did not have a good laptop back then.
Both of if you did not, then I remember I remember the officially advertised numbers were like 2 minutes, right? And of
It was
course,
definitely
exactly like
best case 8 minutes if you had nothing else running on your computer.
yeah, exactly. The numbers always a lie, right? They always assume, your internet's perfect, your computer's like a top-end crazy Mac.
1 million TPS.
Exactly. So, when was the last time that you used a ZK Snark application?
I tried a bunch of stuff on the Aztec testnet a month ago,
Do you remember how long it took you to sign?
like less than 5 seconds.
Less than 5 seconds, right? So that's like probably less than it takes for like the New York Times website to load.
Significantly less.
Yeah. Okay. Congrats. So we're up to competitive.
No, that's great.
Yeah. No.
Well, I guess my kind of
it's,
pushback is, well, you're talking about that feature being more accessible and faster, but you haven't made the case for how do you actually make that part of an existing experience, especially on
Yes.
Ethereum.
Yeah, so super important points, right? I think because for ZK Starks, like the bigger bottleneck isn't to use
Snarks or Starks?
both.
Okay.
Starks are a type of snark, but I think since we're talking about privacy, we'll probably mainly talk about like elliptic curve snarks because Starks are like too big for most of those things. But basically, DevX is like probably even more important than UX, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong, like UX has problems. Like for some reason, when I want to make a private payment in Railway, it takes me like 4 clicks instead of 1. And I hope that they fix that. I mean, I hope Railway just gets integrated into existing wallets. But like from a DevX perspective, right? You have to learn a totally separate language. You have to understand like what this thing even is. You have to understand like what are verification keys. I mean, while we're still on Graph 16, and like I'm hoping we can get off of it in the next year or two, you have to worry about like per application trusted setups, and that's like a concept most people have not heard about, right? But
You've introduced more than you have simplified.
Exactly, but like if we compare this to 3 years ago, the difference is already night and day, right?
But it's still based on performance, not on accessibility.
No, I mean DevX.
Okay, sure, yes.
Yeah, like 3 years ago, you had to like
really figure out Circum.
Exactly. Well, 3 years ago, you had to really figure out Circom, and then like 4 years ago, you had to like actually be a cryptographer. And then now, like there are like circuits for Merkle branches, circuits for all kinds of things that you can just like pick off the shelf, right? So we've improved, right? And like I think there are still places where like, things are left to go. Like I think for me the real end game is when we can get a VM inside of a Snark provable client side. Basically because the ultimate abstraction that's developer friendly just is like an existing VM that existing languages compile to, right? But the problem is that the overhead of a VM is high, and actually we have made huge strides in reducing the overhead of proving. But the problem is that most of those strides have been for like Starks.
Specific or? Oh.
Yeah, Starks, because the main problem is that we've been trying to do is like basically make ZK VMs faster, right? And the Stark is 100 kilobytes. And 100 kilobytes is like actually great for a lot of applications, but if you want like something that goes on chain, or if you want something that like fits in a QR code, that fits in an NFC, then like it needs to be a few hundred bytes. And so like that's something that is being worked on, right?
So we know that mathematically we can do this compression, but it's just a performance thing or something else?
I think it's a performance thing.
Okay.
Like I think actually right now, like if
how do you reduce the size?
So one technique you can always do, right, is you can take a Stark and you can put it into a Snark.
And so you just do recursive. Okay.
Exactly, and that process takes like a constant amount of time, and like that amount of time is a little bit too long right now, but we can hope that it'll shrink, right? So, but even if you just like look at the kinds of applications that we've already seen, right? So, seen, like Railway. Have you used Railway?
Who does not know what Railway is? We'll give you a heads up. Okay. I think it's what we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, it's a thing that basically lets you send ETH and a few other tokens on Ethereum privately. So I have used it, and there have not been any Cointelegraph articles about who I sent the money to. Kraken? Oh no, I'm not even sure if I have a Kraken account. But yeah, okay. So basically, so we have like Railway. We have some really freaking cool ZK ID stuff, right? Like we have things where you can literally, like take your like passport and you make a zero knowledge proof that you have a passport and like prove that you are a person without revealing which person you are.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so you
Yeah.
prove that this is me and I'm from this country or I'm
Yep.
over this age, and
Yep.
you're kind of calling that as
Exactly.
technically private
Yep.
information.
You can prove you're not a bot. I mean, we have. I mean, I've actually think talked even like here at this hackathon. I've already talked to 2 groups that are doing something to do with ZK proofs over identity. So it's like it's getting very viable, right? And and from the user's point of view, like the form factor is just like it's an app. You download it. You like take out your phone and then you like tap the thing, NFC, and then you see like the rotating circle for a few seconds, and then you're done, right? But then from a DevX perspective, like there still has to be someone that does complicated circuits, right? But like that's like basically the difficulty of that is just dropping, and I think like both the tech itself improving and LLMs making like all coding easier, they're probably like improving that in lockstep. So
That makes a lot of sense.
hmm.
So maybe what I want to understand is where do you differentiate between ZK being helpful for just not storing all the information on chain versus helping actually increase privacy for the use of money?
Okay. So good question. So I think top level, right? There's 2 big use cases of the technology, which is scalability and privacy, right? Because the property that these proofs have is you can make a proof of a really big computation, and then the proof is really tiny, fast to verify, and also the proof hides your information, right? And here we're talking about the privacy use cases. The scalability use cases are also super cool, and they're going to be the thing that scales Ethereum by a lot over the next 5 years. But for privacy, right? That's like what we're focusing on here. And for privacy, yeah, so within that, there's a few different use cases, right? So there's privacy of money. And Zcash really pioneered there. And then Tornado Cash is like, you can think of it as being a sort of like very minimalistic clone of Zcash on Ethereum. And then now since then we've got privacy pools and Railway that have these things that are basically using like a proof mechanism to verify to let people prove like that they're not bad actors, or to like essentially or like generally like dissociate from a particular input if they like don't want to like if they wants to clearly separate their funds from that input. So like that space is really expanding. Then separately there's the space of like privacy beyond the money sending use case. And I think identity is a
Isn't
big
that
part.
isn't privacy beyond money the thing you just described?
Yes, identities. Identity is a big part of it.
Okay.
Identity is actually not the only part of it, right? But I mean, for identity, yeah,
Any sort of proof compression or referencing information.
exactly. Actually, yeah, I mean, there's some like really interesting things. So one of the things that I've noticed, like making a lot of progress over the last year or so, is like ZK email, ZK TLS, like basically ZK wrappers of like Web 2 forms of trust. And the reason why I find this stuff useful is basically that like if you want to give someone an account that is like basically like not fully decentralized, but that is very easy to use and that does not rely on them trusting you, then what you do is you give them a smart contract wallet, and that smart contract wallet like basically lets you send a transaction if you can ZK prove that you have a particular email address. And like you can actually do this, right? And like this is one of these. You can call it an identity use case. You can call it a credential. I mean, to me, credentials are one part of identity, and it's like solving a really valuable need, right? Which is basically, look, we have this sort of trade-off curve between essentially decentralization and user friendliness, and the more we can like expand that frontier and create the technologies that give us both at the same time, the better, right? And like basically this theme of making like Web3 wrappers around Web2 things is like to me a really big part of that. And
We know it works. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And we know it works. And like generally, as a user, you don't want to be like blasting your email address out to everyone, and so you need privacy. I mean, yeah.
How well? Okay, so things are faster. There's better for a developer, better SDKs to not have you worry about a lot of these things. It does not still eliminate the possibility of you knowing exactly what you need to do to help ensure that you, as a developer, are responsible for protecting someone else's anyone from identity to preventing any sort of information leaks. And I think my kind of still criticism here is that I still need to understand some math that I don't think I can set an expectation for everybody else, and that's still a big bottleneck.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it seems like I have not heard good things, good alternatives around how do you actually make things more private if you care about doing things on Ethereum mainnet, because you have to now worry about public and private state, and that's not an easy, fun thing to do. So
Right.
how do you simplify that so people actually can try more things instead of coming up with basically MacGyver solutions that may not actually solve the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah, I know. I mean, a few good questions there, right? So I think one of them is around the issue of private state. Like if you have applications that are privacy preserving, then there are like secrets that you as a user will need to hold. And like sometimes those secrets are kind of secrets that you already have in the sense of like something like a ZK passport. The secret basically just is your passport. But you might imagine something more complicated, right? You might imagine some application where like you have a ZK passport, and then that ZK passport allows you to do some number of operations every day. And then to prove that you haven't already done too many operations, you have to keep track of the ones that you've already done. So you could have like once you get your applications become more complicated, there's definitely like private state that you have to store. Like this is one of those tricky things, right? A second thing that's like I think a really good point that you brought up is that you have technology that can give really amazing privacy and security guarantees in theory, but to a user, like how does a user even know whether or not they're getting those guarantees in practice, right? Like if you as a user are told like, hey, put your passport up to this thing and like watch the circle go around, like how do you actually know like whether or not it's like actually sending all of your data, whether or not it's like leaking extra data that it shouldn't, like so far like a lot of that info does not exist yet, right? And it should exist. And like basically I think we need people to build the equivalent of Etherscan contract verification is like one good example, right? Like basically the equivalent of that for ZK and then times 10. So
well, the thing we're discussing is like why is it the right time to build or care about building things for privacy?
Right.
Here is one stupid question. Why bother trying anything now if I can wait maybe 2 more years and have a VM that just is computing everything in private because I think it'll be fast enough and just build apps the way I would normally because I assume any computation in it will be private and not have to worry about anything else because I'll have something else transpile my code into giving me those guarantees.
Yeah, I think I would say, like my answer for this is kind of big picture, which is that I think on a civilizational level, there's quite a bit of urgency in terms of getting some privacy out there. Like basically, I see us being on a default path to losing quite a lot of privacy quite quickly. And so, we've seen, like payments are like very far along the way to becoming electronic, and there's a risk that if the only form of payment is a form of payment that's not privacy preserving, then like we're basically locked into an equilibrium where surveillance of like everything financial becomes the norm. Similar things with AI. AI is like in very not private. Similar things with all kinds of emerging technologies, especially technologies that where the way like they're really interacting with your deepest thoughts. They're interacting with a lot of your private activity. The identity problem, and basically, the era of on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog is basically over. And the reason is that if nobody knows you're a dog, then nobody knows you're a bot. And we don't want an internet where you can just have like 50 million bots taking over everything.
Well, you already are there, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, we are.
The reason why I asked that question is because if I compare this to something like DeFi, I would say that it's probably fair to say that there are no longer any outstanding primitives that you have to invent in DeFi? I can just assume that I have a lending protocol that's big enough that'll kind of satisfy my needs. I have an options protocol. I got a DEX and an AMM, and now I just get to sort of do these combinations of things to come up with the product I want. Is it not better off betting on that same eventuality for ZK, where I can say, here is one protocol that manages sending money from A to B, and it will do that in a preserving way, and I'll wait for maybe 2 or 3 other primitives that help me do some sort of common computation, and I'd rather treat that as public infrastructure in the sense these are not companies. It could be part of the VM. It could just be one of these things that exists. And I now build things on top instead of what it seems like we're forced to do is do something on our own every time and then hope that these things talk to each other, because you're not really going to get that with Grout 16.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say, I mean, like, there's definitely a class of developers who really should wait 2 years. But I also think there's a really important class of developers that need to start like laying the infrastructure now. And the reason why I want to start laying the infrastructure now is basically because laying the infrastructure and like getting the loop started on having at least some level of user base is something that can inform the design of like basically the rest of the entire stack of the ecosystem, right? And so, I mean, like, we want to make sure that we don't get like locked into choices that are needlessly privacy unfriendly. And like basically, we need scouts, right? And we need power users, and also we need like there are categories of applications that I think like basically are ready for prime time.
But I feel like the only way you get there faster is by making that the default.
Yes.
For where the code is deployed, and not have that be an additional thing somebody has to take on. So you're better off betting on a private layer 2 existing than introducing this as a new product into the mix of things that are also not private.
Yeah, so the private layer 2 topic is interesting. So I think one of the challenges there is, well, a couple of things, right? So one of them is that like there are privacy applications where the optimal thing is to actually have everything be off-chain, or not everything, but like most things be off-chain. And like one type of privacy that I generally think a lot of people underrate is privacy of metadata. And like even Signal breaks here, right? So like, for example, if I send a Signal message to you, then like even Signal, the company, they have no idea what the contents are.
They know the last IP.
Exactly. Well, they know a little bit of the contents because they know it's a tiny text message and not like a 100-megabyte file. But they know the IP. They know like both of our usernames, and then phone numbers. And then even if you switch over to like session or something else that anonymizes that, like there's just the fact that user sent, like user A sent a message to user B at time, like 21:05 on May 30th Prague time, right? And these days AI is like friggin' powerful, right? And so even just from a pattern of like a few dozen messages of like one person sending to another, like that's enough to de-anonymize people, right? And often that's even enough to like get things about the conversation topic, like message arrival like times, like you can friggin' do sentiment analysis on that, right?
That's
and and I think there's like blockchain analogs of this where there are people who like there's a strong case for like an application development paradigm that just says like dump everything on chain just in case. And but the risks of that in a privacy context are
dump everything by encrypting it, or just
well, encrypting or not encrypting, right? Like there is such a thing as like social media protocols where everything is just a transaction, right? But the risk of doing that in a privacy context, like there's 2 risks, right? One is if it's encrypted, then there's, in the future when quantum computers come, there might be a big oops and everything gets decrypted.
Yeah.
And then 2 is like this metadata issue, right? Like basically if you put everything on chain, then like that still reveals a lot of metadata. You have to worry about where transactions got sent from, when transactions got sent, like, and like often just keeping data local is like actually a very tried and true way of protecting privacy. But if you're going to keep data local, then like that does require like actually this like extra tooling, right? And I think one of the things we should actually like start thinking about doing is just like actually building that tooling. And so maybe one of the cases of this is in for like starting this now is that good general purpose tools often come from having like a reasonably diverse set of motivating examples. And so if you start building like tools for with some motivating examples, then like at some point you realize like, wait, these things have these 5 things in common, and then we need to combine, right? And so, and I think like the faster we can really get our feet off the ground running in terms of this, and like really think about like even a couple of different categories of applications interacting with each other. So private money, private identity, private voting. I would start with those 3. And then obviously private messaging. Then like once you even have like a suite and you see how everything starts to fit together, like like that.
At the private messaging level, you boil down to just sending arbitrary packets, and you might as well do whatever at that point.
Exactly.
I want to just do a couple other things. We kind of brought up possible doomsday scenario with AI, tracing back who somebody is. How often do you use any LLM on a day-to-day basis?
Quite often. So I mean, I've definitely like started playing around with the local LLMs more. So I have a Q130B, and like I ask things to it through Olama when I can. And like what's interesting is there are times when like local first is like great even from a UX perspective. Like the internet often breaks, and like sometimes like literally loading Google Translate is actually slower than like opening up Olama and saying like, hey, what's this word in English or what's this word in German?
What are you using it for? I guess more specifically, have you used it to help improve Ethereum in some form?
Oh, quite often, yeah. I mean, all kinds of things actually. So coding is one use case, right? So often, it does a very good kind of first pass of writing certain types of code.
This is Python or Solidity?
Python. It's done. I've done it with Python. I've done it with Solidity. I've done it with Viper. So it works well for that. Obvious like research. Like checking different kinds of ideas, like even like talking to it about like quadratic funding mechanisms. Like it's far from perfect, right?
Asking criticisms or helping run, with scenarios. Like, what's like an example of what's
some of both, right? Because like you can do it you can definitely use it for to like try to criticize your ideas. You can use it to just like make simulations. Like basically, the thing that all of these tools make really easy to do is like whenever you want, like if you just want like 100-line scripts to just like run and test something, then you can just go do it, and then the script appears within like 30 seconds, and you can run it, right? So.
But in this case, at least for research, it's the onus is still on you to verify that it didn't hallucinate and that the conclusions are correct. And I guess from your experience, how often does that happen?
It's definitely often incorrect. It definitely often misses important things. So it's definitely something that's supposed to like work with you and not replace you, right? So the analogy that I use is do you know what year chess AI started beating average human beings?
Is that the same as the Kasparov match?
No, it's actually earlier.
Earlier?
Yeah.
95?
1980, roughly.
80, okay.
Yeah, and then when did AI start beating the smartest human at chess? We know this.
97?
1996, Garry Kasparov versus Deep Blue. Now, when did human plus AI stop being better than pure AI?
2003?
2017.
17.
Yeah, so actually,
And this is chess, not Go.
This is chess. Yeah.
Huh.
Now with Go, actually, it's a good question. I'm not even sure whether we're at the point where like AI is better than human plus.
I think that was kind of the second version of the DeepMind bot that did prove that, but I forget what year that is.
Like if we think about like some of these more open-ended real-world tasks, then for a lot of them, there's like we're entering this like regime where like basically the combination of the two is like stronger than one or stronger than the other, and so it's like a really important skill to be able to wield it, to be able to know when it's wrong, to be able to know when you should ask it, to know when you shouldn't ask it. Hmm.
Do you have any frameworks for like how do you get better at that? Because if anything, it's going to get even more.
Mm-hmm.
The compounding of how intelligent these models are getting is astonishing. And
Yeah.
if I'm trusting it to just create a script or propose something, I have to match its
Hmm.
in a way intensity to understand if this was correct or not. And
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to get better at that.
Mm. How have you improved your skill at identifying which crypto Twitter accounts are high signal and which ones are total bullshitters?
Everything that's lost me money is bad, and I think everything. No,
Mm.
it's just social trust.
Mm.
People recommend, and you have a curation in some form.
Mm.
But
What about accounts that like nobody else that you know of knows?
I'm still relying on some social discovery because
Mhm.
the Twitter feed does something
Right.
every now and then. We'll discover
Mhm.
a gem.
Yeah.
Um,
What about like the
but
like
just
so yeah.
usually search.
Yeah.
Because
If we get to like the finer points, right? So like thinking about like, hey, this account is good at topic A, but sometimes it has weakness Y.
oh, sure, I
Yeah.
see. So you kind of like have a model of
Mm.
experts type of
Mhm.
world where you're saying this thing is really good at
Mhm.
just this type of problem solving, but I
Yeah.
shouldn't trust it for everything else.
Right, and like I think you can like if you interact well, like if you look at different accounts on Twitter enough, like you can acquire an instinct for this sort of thing, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
but I think the issue is that a lot of times
Mm.
the answer you're looking for should behave deterministically.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm.
human feedback for a lot of these LLMs are, well, just the spectrum is so wide that you may actually not have
Mm-hmm.
repeatability in a lot of cases
Right.
for the types of requests that you're giving.
Yeah, agree. I mean, these things definitely have a non-zero error rate, and of course, humans also have a non-zero error rate.
Occasionally higher, yes.
Indeed, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, and like you want to be like this is why you want to have like yourself and the bot and actually be able to cross-check each other, right? And,
How do you think there's a world where we can just
hmm.
prompt engineer fixing and improving the L1 soon enough?
Hmm. I mean, I think we'll get there for parts of it. I think okay. So here's like the actual thing that I would love to see, like coding AI do, is I would love to see coding AI make formal verification extremely easy. Like I would love for it to be possible to like actually,
Ooh, that should be actually possible now.
exactly, yeah, like generate a machine verifiable proof that a particular zk prover of the EVM actually does prove the EVM, or that like a particular implementation of the EVM is deterministic, or the particular like generate like 100 intuitive rules that the EVM should follow, like an account should only lose money with that account's permission, and then automatically verify that it follows those rules. Like basically, I think there is like this North Star that a lot of people are not realizing that is possible, which is like basically much closer than we've imagined for a long time to bug-free code. And like what I expect is that I expect there will be domains where instead we're going to take all of that capability and we're going to use that capability to write even more code. But for use cases, we're okay with security, and for use case or where we want high security, and for use cases where like simplicity of the thing and simplicity of the goals is explicitly valued, like I think we are going to be able to get to the point where we can credibly say there is an Ethereum protocol implementation that has 0 bugs in it, and like to
That'd be an
be
awesome world.
yeah, and so Ethereum 4.0, that's what the O stands for how many bugs it has.
Um, one of your talks a few days ago, you kind of talked about
Hmm.
why it's important to not compromise on
Hmm.
the values of
Hmm.
decentralization and kind of
Hmm.
things that you shouldn't break as principles.
Hmm.
What I'm curious on is
Mhm.
if the task is to make Ethereum L1 faster and better,
Mm.
what are things that should not be compromised on? And let's start with that list, and then I want to know how does that reconcile with the goal?
Yeah, I think concrete things that worry me. One is extreme low latency, right?
Okay,
Actually,
so that
like
compromises on decentralization.
exactly, and
Okay.
I'll actually, yeah, like I've thought about it for like a while, and I think extreme low latency would worry me more than extreme high scale.
What is
And
extreme low latency?
like
Quantifiably.
1 second block times, less than
Okay.
that. Yeah,
So 1 second, not good
I don't think
for
so.
decentralization.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so here's my argument for this, right? Basically, yeah, if you think about the ping time from like say North America to like say Southeast Asia or to Latin America,
Like
right?
800 milliseconds, 600 milliseconds.
Exactly. And so if you like the one slot takes multiple rounds of communication, right?
So you need minimum
Yeah.
3.
Exactly. And so if you have a 1 second slot time, then like basically, someone who is an 800 millisecond hop away will not be able to participate at all.
Okay.
And
Can I push back on that?
mm,
Wasn't the original plan to do sharding, which forces this to be simplified, and this kind of the architecture you end up with anyway? Okay.
so my concern with Starlink is that like Starlink is one type of mechanism. It's also very not censorship resistant. It's like satellites have high.
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
sorry, I said sharding.
Oh, sharding. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
I heard Starlink.
No, sorry.
Because
now you are creating these
Yes.
sub-locations, and
Okay.
I would actually be okay with a 1 second
Yeah.
slot because everything
Right.
I know will be North
Okay,
America.
yeah, that's a good point because like the way that Ethereum sharding, like the Ethereum school of thought in terms of sharding has historically worked is it's worked through random sampling, right?
Okay.
And like actually with data availability sampling, we're also doing random sampling, except it's like kind of inverted and it's sort of bottom up instead of top down.
So you're
But-
giving counter argument to your own point.
Yeah, but the random sample, but the property that random sampling has is that like it samples randomly from the whole world, right? Like or from like the entire set of nodes from the entire set of data,
So
and it has to do that for security. There's another school of thought of sharding which has been relatively expressed less. Actually, Juan Bennett is a big fan of it, which is local sharding.
Yeah,
Like you imagine, you have the Prague shard, and then you have the Singapore
connected to the
shard.
Europe shard, and then
Exactly. And like the reason why I've personally been like less enthusiastic about this is because it does introduce a lot of complexity to because like while it's hard to 51% attack all of Ethereum, it's easy for someone to like bring in the capital to 51% attack Prague, right? Like or any one city. And then like basically you have to worry about like what happens if individual cities get 51% attacked and like what that means and how do you recover from that. And but
but
yeah,
can you 51% attack
mm,
long enough
mhm.
and actually affect more than a few blocks in this scenario?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
'Cause
so I
you're-
think
your damage area is still 1 block, right?
right. So I think the version of this that makes sense is actually L2s, right?
Okay.
And I
Oh,
think
yeah, fair enough.
yeah, and because like L2s have a lot of similarities to shards, and like if you actually like having more deliberately localized L2s, I think eventually it'll happen, right? Like if you think about like gaming servers have been like shorted by continent for like 2 decades now, right? So yeah, I think we are going to have like a local, like region-wide, potentially even city-wide L2s, and I think that's great. Hmm.
So if
Hmm.
the ETH research team,
Mm.
everybody on Twitter, independent of how much you should listen to them, are
Mhm.
all in favor of reducing block times to be a second,
Mm.
I guess what do we do about that world? And it looks like we've compromised on decentralization according to that metric. Is that also affecting censorship resistance?
I would say yes. So I think like geo decentralization fits into censorship resistance very directly. And so first of all, there's like a couple of dimensions of geo decentralization, right? One is like literally which continent you're in, and two is sort of are you close to the edges of, or are you close to kind of the central hub, like the arteries of the network, or are you further remote? Like basically, yeah. like if you have nodes in 6 continents, but the nodes are only in data centers, like that is also a type of decentralization, and that's also a type of vulnerability, right? And like obviously, yeah, you could imagine, the CT like podcast bro saying like, hey, all the users with real money are in New York. What's the problem if all the servers are in New York? But the reality is that like even the degens in New York really value the censorship resistance that comes from nodes being distributed across many jurisdictions in many continents, right? So it's a property that benefits everyone.
I mean,
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
And I agree. However, I guess my question is,
Hmm.
people have already expressed we would like to get block times to be 1 second.
Hmm.
Is that a thing that you're going to try to veto, or it still goes through? What's kind of the outcome of this very much in progress work that seems like the research team is already doing?
Yeah. So I think there's a few things that could happen, right? So one is that, like a lot of the time, there are compromises that end up making a lot of sense. So, like for example, one option is, you could imagine some notion of like microblocks where you have slots every 4 seconds, and you have microblocks with some weaker form of consensus every 1 second, and then like that could actually
Is
work
block
fine.
time the same as finality here?
No. Or the current plan is 3 slot finality. So
So you get your 1 second block time and 3 second finality.
right. Well, in this case, it would be 4 second blocks, 12
I see.
second finality, and 1 second microblocks. Right. That's like one possible route. And then if you do that, then the one weakness of microblocks is that if one proposer disappears, then which only happens like 1% of the time, then you have to wait the entire 4 seconds.
And microblock is not the same as pre-confirmation.
They're actually very similar. I think the one big like variable in the design space is basically, does it just come from the builder, or is there some interaction between the builder and the attesters? And the interaction between builder and the attesters, it does make it a little slower, but it provides the benefit that like the trust doesn't just depend on the builder's reputation, which is good for builder decentralization.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one. And then another type of compromise is like if we're explicitly okay with saying like, hey, yeah, if L1 is going to scale a lot, then like what's the point of L2? And like one of the points of L2 can be extremely low latency. And so, can we just say like that is actually one of the value props of L2, and like if that's what you as an L2 have been building for, then like great, right?
That works.
Yeah.
I'm just realizing there's not a lot of things we're disagreeing on, so that's not going well. What do we have different opinions on? How do you scale going to multiple events every year? Will we see a Vitalik bot?
Oh, what kind of bot are we talking about? Like an LLM to replace myself, or are we talking about like the telepresence thing?
The human experience in transmitted form.
Yeah, I would definitely love to like try the telepresence bot thing. Like, I remember it being really cool. No, if we're gonna talk to an LLM, then you can do way more fun stuff than just cloning me, right? You can like.
I can't wait for you to be misquoted by an LLM hallucination.
Yeah, you can like 50-50, like
A/B
me.
test your opinions.
Yeah, like me and Gregory Maxwell and like Anatoly. You can, like you can take like Kartik, but with like pro Bitcoin maximalism dialed up to like plus 99999.
That's a good experiment. That's a hackathon project. If you want to see some samples. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else we can disagree on? How fast should we see a lot of these changes to the L1 that have been talked about in the last couple of months?
Yeah, okay. So my view is like generally I think we should scale L1 by about 10x over the next year and a bit based on delayed...
Why the in a bit? Why not be more ambitious here?
No, year would be great. But based on like basically delayed execution, block level access lists, networking level improvements, distributed history storage, like the stuff that we already talked about. and then I think at that point it would be a good time to like basically take a breather and like have a period to verify that we're actually doing okay on decentralization properties. Possibly even like do a fork and like focus on kind of like
Oh, that's a controversial comment. Hold on.
like
Say that one more time, please.
yeah. Take a breather, verify that we're fine on the decentralization
Okay.
properties, and like possibly do a fork to tie up loose ends in terms of
Oh, you mean a hard fork, not create a second chain.
yeah, exactly, yes,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Versus soft forks.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean for yeah, like tie up loose ends on like account abstraction, censorship resistance, possibly like VM improvements, simplify the protocol, switch to SSZ, like stuff that doesn't kind of like threaten decentralization, and at the same time like we become more confident, and then once zk VMs like really become mature enough that we can rely on them, then like go even beyond that.
Sweet.
So like that's my approach. I mean, I know there are people that are kind of even more like brave than I am, and they like don't believe in the take a breather step, and they believe that we should like literally commit today to doing 1000x. Like I don't believe in that. But I mean, in general, like I do think there's a lot of room to scale safely.
That's awesome. Maybe as the last question, what do you think Ethereum should steal from another ecosystem that is working well and is not working well in the Ethereum ecosystem?
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I'm thinking. I'm
Yeah.
going through the list because like I mean like a
Doesn't
lot
have
of
to be just technical.
yeah.
It's a very broad, abstract question.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I mean, I think like ecosystems outside of Ethereum that I like respect for their mission like orientation. Zcash is one. Celestia is one. I think it's like actually up there in terms of having its like like actual cypherpunk contingent. Bitcoin also is one.
But what would you steal from
But
those?
steal them, I think there's like good aspects of the culture in a lot of those cases. Also, there's a lot of like as we discuss the like scaling while remaining decentralized, I think we should talk to a lot of Bitcoin people and like really understand well, like basically what is the concrete thing that they've been wanting out of small blocks, and ensure that like we actually can retain the like those types of benefits.
Okay, I think we finally found something we disagree on.
Okay.
My answer is we should be as loud as possible
Uh huh.
and do the best we can to talk about all the things that are happening in our ecosystem, which we kind of rely on hope to be the propagator.
Okay. Which ecosystem are we going to learn the loudness from?
Which ecosystem are we?
Learning this loudness from?
Basically, every ecosystem that has mostly no product, but
Okay.
still has surprisingly high amount of attention.
Okay. Okay, you know what? If we want to go into bravery, I think, I mean, the thing we can.
I'm being careful here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing we can learn from Tron is, like, like actually,
It's
like,
a couple more, but yes.
like basically taking this kind of, like a go approach and like actually scaling out and like actually delivering a concrete thing that benefits huge numbers of people in developing countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, what else? What do we learn from BitConnect? They're good at dancing.
Turns out stable coins are in high demand. If that's taught us in anything,
Yeah.
people will happily do algorithmic stablecoin experiments.
That's true. No, I think that was Terra Luna.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It can be both.
Yeah.
It's sadly not a competition,
Mm-hmm.
but somebody's still trying to outcompete here.
I know. I thought the BitConnect conferences, like like they felt
high production
the production
value.
value was good. Yeah.
That's a good takeaway. It's
What do we learn from the U.S. dollar?
turns out that that you definitely have consequences if you if we just suddenly increase the supply and change the max supply number.
That's a good point. I was going to say network effects matter, but there are definitely things
I
that
mean,
are powerful enough that can break
yeah,
network effects.
Intimidation usually works, turns out, especially if you get to somebody 70 years ago.
Are you saying Ethereum needs a navy? I don't want that.
Navy DAO? I don't know. Can we buy secondhand Navy submarines on eBay? Probably.
Probably. Yep.
And while we're at it, let's Solana.
Solana, yeah. It's like some of everything, right? They're definitely one of the chains that's got that like a good attitude of just
messaging.
being willing to talk about their stuff. Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, coin.
Oh, sorry, Bitcoin.
Oh, Bitcoin. We went through Bitcoin. I think like there's like strengths and weaknesses of the kind of uncompromising approach to Bitcoin maximalism that we can learn from the successes and the failures of.
Yeah, we can steal making ETH money. Perfect. Well, Vitalik, thank you so much, and
Thank you
please
too,
give a big
Kartik.
round of applause. A couple of last minute things for all of you to know. There's a lot of prizes here, $150,000. 1-inch block Scout are giving $20,000 in prizes. Flow, Flare, Hedera, Layer 0, Pit, Rootstock, V-Layer Yellow, and World are giving $10,000 each in prizes. And Baraboro and Protocol Labs have $5,000 in prizes. You can check out all that information on the ETHGlobal website. And if you're still looking for a team, there's a session happening in room C1 where you can find other team members and get ideas. And with that, we want you to have fun, enjoy yourself, and make sure that you realize this is about experimentation and learning. So try your best and present whatever you get done by Sunday. So thank you so much for being here, and let's get hacking.